I'm Vicki Spriggs, CEO of Texas CASA, and my guest today is Knox Kimberly, Senior Vice President of Advocacy and Stakeholder Relationships at Upbring. Hi, how you doing today,
Vicki,
Knox?
it's great to be with you. Thank you.
It's great to have you. Thank you for coming. So can
My
you
pleasure.
tell our viewers what Upbring is?
Certainly. Many of your viewers will likely recall that Upbring used to be Lutheran Social Services of the South. We have a rich 130-plus year legacy of serving children, youth, and families throughout the state. But about 4 years ago, the organization went through a strategic review and decided that we needed to go all in on children and youth, especially in the foster care system, in education, and other areas that we'll talk about. So we went through, we identified, we were in senior care, we sold off all those facilities so that now we are entirely focused on the needs of children and youth in Texas, which are, as you know, great needs.
Exactly.
We also changed our name to Upbring, which is a derivative of the word upbringing, which was intended to appeal to a broader audience and evoke that commitment to children and youth.
Super. So you referenced the working with children and youth and then other services related. Do you want to talk about the other services related?
Certainly. So let's start with education. We are probably the largest single provider of foster care currently in Texas, but we envision that over time it will be our educational services that will become the largest single item in our portfolio. We currently provide education through a charter school, and that charter school has a very specialized purpose, which is to serve the needs of those who are in residential treatment. As you know, the most severely traumatized children are in RTCs in order to help them make progress in dealing with their trauma and preparing to go into a regular placement or preferably, of course, a permanency outcome. Mm-hmm. So we do that at our 2 RTCs that we operate, but we also provide educational services at a total of 13 RTCs across the state because other RTC operators have learned that we know what we're doing with the education piece and have brought us in to do that for them. So we're really excited about that. We are a faith-based organization, so we also operate private Christian schools here in Austin as well as in Houston. So education is big for us, and it is really part of our philosophical approach to care. We believe in a continuum of care that assures that all of the protective factors that are needed for a young person to grow up and be successful are built into their lives early on. As you know, we have a system built around safety, and safety is, of course, important. But I would suggest it is a baseline component. We ought to aspire to be better than just providing safety.
Absolutely.
Education, healthcare, life skills, and vocation, helping these young people to find their calling, their purpose in life is also very important.
Outstanding. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit because we're talking about advocacy and stakeholder relationships. I know you spend an inordinate amount of time at the Capitol
I do.
educating legislators and testifying during the session. So
Yes.
Do you want to talk about the outcome of this past legislative session, things that you think our viewers would want to know?
I think what people should know is that you have a strong bipartisan coalition of members of the Texas legislature who get it, who care, and who are doing things. Now, every session you're going to have your things that you're happy with, and you're going to have a few disappointments. I choose to focus on what they did do because I think they did an awful lot. And when you look back and you take the long view, look at the past 3 legislative sessions prior to this one. The legislature invested more than $1 billion new dollars in child welfare and more than $1 billion new dollars in mental health programs and services. So when you come into a session like this, you have to be concerned that you might see some backsliding. Folks, we dealt with your stuff last time or the time before, there was no backsliding. The Department of Family and Protective Services budget, for example, increased by 6%, which is probably higher than certainly higher than most state agencies. There is an understanding that there remains more work to be done to get this right in the system. And of course, part of that is community-based care. And the legislature, sometimes if they pass a new initiative, then the next session they'll kind of take a sharp left or right turn.
Right.
That did not happen. They stayed the course with community-based care, which we're really excited about because we support that model.
Super. This is all good. So I want to just go back for a second because they did put a huge amount of money into Child Protective Services last session, and then to get a 6% increase on top of that really is notable.
It is notable.
It is notable. And then you also touched on community-based care.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So community-based care was enacted in 2017 as a kind of a further development of what used to be called foster care redesign. The concept is to have in each individual region of the state a single contractor to oversee the system of providing care and placement services, and ultimately, as you know, this element being somewhat more controversial, ultimately case management. Mm-hmm. So we have community-based care in place now in 3 regions of the state. A contract for a 4th region was just awarded late last month, early this month. And then there is one more region in procurement. So by the time we get into the new biennium, there are 5 regions that will be inside of the community-based care system. And the reason we like the model is because we are dealing in child abuse and neglect and the aftermath of that on these young people with a very complex social challenge. And we know that government alone cannot solve a complex social challenge. It takes people at the community level to band together to say, these are our kids and we need to take care of them here in the community. The individual contractors, and I think the first 3 are all doing this well, have the opportunity and indeed the obligation to go out and build a robust set of community partnerships that will help assure that all of the services and all of the supports these young people need are there and available to them and at home, and keeping these children closer to home as a result, and to work at the community level to increase capacity and to encourage people to be more inclined to become a verified foster home, or to help the system in other ways, including, by the way, being a CASA volunteer. Mm-hmm. So it's all, for a state like Texas, which is really a nation state with all of these diverse regions, to expect that a centralized statewide system is going to be able to deliver the best outcomes is not realistic. And so this community-based care model takes it down to the community level, and we think that will produce better outcomes. And the early evidence from especially the first of the contractors who has been in place in Fort Worth for some time, are very promising.
Yeah, if I recall, it's OCOK. And
yes.
They have been really good about developing foster homes in that area, proximity to the child's home county,
yes.
which is the first bonanza of this. I mean, we are really all excited about that because we know that when we have CASA volunteers who are traveling to the other side of the state to see a child because they're placed that far away
yes.
from home, mm-hmm. that it just makes it really difficult to maintain the quality of relationship you want to have.
Indeed.
And the quality of oversight you want to have.
Indeed, very, very difficult.
Absolutely. I know that you work very closely with our public policy team.
I do.
And I hear really good things about you and your work and what Upbring is doing. So I want to thank you for that. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you think our viewers should know?
Wow. Well, that we could be here quite a long time discussing those things.
Right.
I can tell you that like you all, and your public policy team is absolutely stellar. I love working with them, and they're just terrific at their job, and that reflects the commitment of Texas CASA to advocacy. And I've always been very impressed with the way that you're able to provide the meaningful opportunity for true input from all of your affiliates across the state. And that is very hard to do with a network as large and diverse as you have to work with. So kudos to you for all of that. I can tell you from an Upbring perspective, we supported 83 different bills this session publicly. 34 of those were enacted into law. Wow. So we could go through all 34 of those.
Let's not pretend we did.
Gonna do that. But I would say that the continued focus on improving child welfare outcomes, the continued focus on mental health, and even in this session when we were not the prime time emergency item, other issues that are critical to children were, like school finance and school safety.
Right.
So it was still, it was a very important session for children, and to see children's issues at the top of the agenda, which in my view they should be every single session. We have half of the nation's growth in the children's population takes place in Texas, so nothing could be more important to the future of the state. So I think what I would like your audience, your viewers, to keep in mind here is that they may read things in the press that are critical of the legislature. My read of the legislature is that we've got it pretty darn good here in Texas. You look around at what's going on in other states where they are cutting back on services and cutting back on this and that, and it's not a good situation. I think Texas has really upped its game on child welfare over the last several years, and I think we've got a pretty darn group of advocates who are determined to see that continue.
Super, and I count you among that group of advocates. Again, we're with Knox Kimberly, who's the Senior Vice President of Advocacy and Stakeholder Relations at Upbring. Knox, thank you so much for being with us today. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your efforts out there, the things that people don't see you do in all those meetings you're attending to 0 hours in the morning. Thank you for everything you do, and thank you for the heart and the commitment that you bring to all that you do.
Thank you, Vicki. The feeling is mutual. We really appreciate everything that Texas CASA all over the state of Texas does for the benefit of these children.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us for another edition of Conversations with CASA. I'll see you next time.